Want to know why a lot of people never get rich? They're too busy trying to look rich. The truth is that wealth doesn't come from impressing other people. It comes from doing the uncool things no one wants to talk about. Except for me. I want to talk about it. So let's dive in. Welcome to Nerdonomic. I'm Paige. And on this channel, I don't string you along. I give you practical financial advice. Look, it's no secret, unless you were born yesterday, you know that society glorifies flashy spending. But true wealth often looks, well, kind of boring. Today I'm sharing why being uncool is the secret to financial success and why that's the ultimate flex. Honestly, it was some of the best advice I ever got growing up. You know, it's a different world these days. We have different financial pressures. This economy, am I right? Oh my goodness. And I'll tell you, my mother was a mixed bag. She's a bit of a character, we'll put it that way. Some of her advice was not very good, but some of it was awesome. And one of the most important things she ever told me is that it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you spend more than you make, you will always be poor. Now, it's easier to live a good life without spending more than you make if you make a lot. But I'm telling you, it's a diminishing returns thing. If you need to look like the richest person around, to broadcast wealth at all times, to drive the flashiest car, to wear the most designer clothes, to live in the best neighborhood, in the prettiest house, on the prettiest street, with a brand new constructed home at the most expensive HOA, sending all of your kids who are also designer labeled clothes to the best private schools. Like, it just adds up. It's just more and more money. And it doesn't make you happy. The other thing that's really interesting about trying to appear cool and trying to appear wealthy and to show off is that there are a lot of people who wear their wealth. So I lived in a suburb of Dallas for about 4 years at one point. My husband and I have moved a bunch of times across the country. We lived in a few different areas. We had moved to Addison because his employer at the time was right there. He could walk to work. And it was a pretty neighborhood and it worked out. But unbeknownst to us, Addison residents had a nickname. It was called $50,000 Millionaires. So the stereotypical Addison resident was a young, pretty influencer type that wore designer clothes and was in crippling debt to drive a nice car, to wear designer clothes, and to live in this fashionable neighborhood. We managed to find an apartment that was on a nice street that was in a little bit older building, but was about half the cost of some of the other buildings in the area, half the rent. And we were very smart about how we decorated it. It was very pretty. It was perfect. And of course, I wasn't wearing luxury clothes. At the time, I was working online. That's how I make my money. I've been making my money online for over 7 years through a variety of online businesses. I started on YouTube last year, but prior to that, I had done quite a bit with writing and e-commerce business, a variety of different products. I've made quite a good living doing that. And at the time, I had a large social media following for a niche brand I was working on, a magazine. And there were people who really wanted to get famous on Instagram in my neighborhood because the neighborhood was very pretty. So even if people didn't live there, they would do photo shoots and stuff in my neighborhood. So I would be going to get my mail outside my apartment building or taking my trash out, and I'd just be all kind of like schlubbed up because who cares? I didn't know anybody. I'm just taking out the trash. I don't want to get messy. I'm just kind of, get it in the mail or whatever. And somebody was doing a photo shoot at the front of my apartment building. They were posing and everything. They had a professional photographer. They had lights. Like, it was a whole setup. Anyway, they were really mad at me because I ruined their shot by using my mailbox. Literally, I was getting my mail out of my apartment mailbox and they were like yelling at me because the front of my apartment building was actually really lovely. It was very pretty, so they were doing a photo shoot. Right? And that was Addison for you. There was a talent agency down the road. This is a true story. My best friend in Texas thinks this is hilarious, so I'll tell you guys about this. There was a talent agency down the road. They did social media work for influencers and they charged premium. And my friend looked up the agency and some of their clients and stuff, and She was like, Paige, your following is like 10 times bigger than the agency or any of their clients that are paying through the nose for this. Now, they were cooler than me, but I didn't really care about being cool. And on that particular brand, I wasn't like the face of the brand. The brand is really well known. I'm kind of secretly in the wings for that brand, which honestly has been very fulfilling work. It's made me lots of money. It's been very low cost, very cool business proposition for me because I haven't worried about looking cool or being cool or any of that. I focused on delivering information that people wanted in an area that was underserved, in a way that was approachable. So that's a big thing, right? Not doing the same thing everybody does. It applies to not necessarily buying the most expensive car you can, but it also applies to finding business opportunities that maybe aren't cool now, but you can make them cool, you can make it large, because after I built up this one presence, I became the biggest brand in this particular niche. And the niche grew, and there are lots of other people that did it as well. The neat thing is that once it became cooler, the entire pool opened up, and there was a market for the newbies, and my business went up as well because they were marketing to new people and growing the niche. So if you can get in ideas or buy products when they're uncool, a lot of times they become cool later. So sometimes you're looking from an investment perspective for the diamond in the rough, whether you're investing in an idea or a house or what have you. Marching to the beat of a different drummer, looking for things that are not currently popular but should be or will be, totally good from an investment perspective. Okay, so here's the other thing, and I want to put this out there. As much as we feel like we want to impress other people with wealth, people are not that impressed with wealth. Let me tell you a little story. Before I had my own business, back before I worked for myself, I had an office job. I was a manager in a corporate setting. And the CEO of my company, the big boss, he had a really fancy car. It was a BMW. It was this white BMW. It was on the newer end. At the time, I lived in the Cleveland area, in the burbs. He lived in one of the nicer suburbs of Cleveland. I mean, okay, like Cleveland doesn't have a bougie reputation. Like there's a very popular phrase, which is, bitch, I'm from Cleveland. But he lived in the nicest part of the greater Cleveland area, essentially, where people had some mansions and stuff, which good for him. I'm not a hater. I'll never be a hater. But he had this expensive BMW. He loved this car, which honestly, fine. If it's his passion project, he loves it, great. But he really desperately wanted everyone who worked there, everyone who worked for him to be impressed by it, and he would name drop it. So he'd be like, I'm going to the dealership now to get work done on my BMW. And he would just shoehorn it into conversations. He'd be like, oh, well, I got a BMW, so I've got to think about this. He would literally do that. He was like name dropping his car into every situation. And I want to be like, bitch, you're from Cleveland. No, but seriously, like he was underpaying all of us at the office. And so we're like, why are you advertising that you have money and you're not giving us raises? A. And B, his rich friends didn't care. He did not drive the nicest car in his set of friends. Like there are people that had McLarens and things like that he knew in his social circle, which is basically the Batmobile, these high-end luxury cars. So that's what I've kind of found, that when you're trying to show off how much money you have and to impress people who have less than you will resent you, especially if you're underpaying them. And people who have the same or more than you will probably think you're being tacky or that you shouldn't be proud of that. Like, you're not impressing people. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never really been impressed by people that flaunted wealth. Here's the thing, not a hater. In our society, money is very important, and I think it is the key that opens a lot of doors, and I think that it has a huge impact upon your life. And I know that I have gone from a lower middle class start in life to being decently comfortable these days, and it opened a lot of doors for me, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's been very important, and it's been a big quest for me, and it has affected everything in my life. However, I don't expect anybody to be impressed by that. And I certainly don't think the best way to communicate that I have wealth is by wasting it on displays that don't make myself or others happy. Now, like I said, if you have something that's expensive and luxury and it gives you joy to have it, then fine, you can make that decision, you can budget for it, that's great. And I do think there are different times when it makes sense to get yourself something nice. It all depends on your budget. But I think doing it because you want to be cool or you want to impress other people, it's not a good strategy. It's not a way to build wealth, and it frankly isn't a way to impress people either. Honestly, some of the coolest people I know are really, really free thinkers. You know, they talk about the eccentric millionaire, that kind of person. I mean, the most famous example is obviously Warren Buffett, who despite his huge amounts of wealth, still lives in the same modest house he bought decades ago. Luxury cars start losing value the moment you drive them off the lot. There are a lot of millionaires who are driving Toyotas and Hondas and cars that aren't flashy but are reliable. The rich aren't afraid to patch up a pair of jeans or hold on to an old phone for 5 years if it's still working. I have known wealthy people in my life who use coupons, buy in bulk, and are completely shameless about it. They don't care about labels. They're confident in themselves. They're comfortable with their life, and they are not chasing status, not by spending money. Some of the rich that I know are quietly working on their legacies and on improving the world and focusing on putting their money to use in a practical way versus wearing it, being a $50,000 millionaire. And honestly, keeping up with the Joneses can lead to huge debt, and frankly, there's diminishing returns. Like, it doesn't lead to happiness. And instead, I am a proponent of stealth wealth, which is being a ninja, kinda. Basically, I think it's good to not flaunt your wealth, to not make it the first thing people know about you. Because here's the other thing. Let's say you are really wealthy. People get very transactional around people that are wealthy. They start saying, oh, what can you do for me? That sort of thing. It's kind of the thing, that plot of Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, if you're familiar with that movie. So he's a prince from a fictitious African country, and he comes to America to find his bride. He pretends that he's of humble means when he's dating. And the reason he does this is because he knows if romantic prospects know he's wealthy, then the women will just want him for his money. And it's not just with dating prospects. If people know you have wealth, they start wanting things from you. So I argue that if somebody looks rich, they're probably not rich, because it's not safe to look wealthy when you are actually wealthy. Unless you make that your whole personality, your whole brand, your job to appear wealthy, and there's not that many people. Most rich people don't look rich. So I challenge you to try something with this. When you're going over your monthly budget, when you're looking over your figures, and you should be, don't be afraid to look. It's always best to acknowledge the truth. It's as Carl Sagan once said, if it can be destroyed by the truth, it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. Your budget's like that too. But I challenge you in this budget to calculate your monthly impression spending. And when you're doing this, this would be anything you bought to look good to other people. I would challenge you to look at that and redirect that instead to savings and investments. I mean, are you gonna be able to do all of that? No. Technically, stuff like shampoo, basic makeup if you're at a corporate job, are looking good to other people. You know, technically, but don't worry about technically. You know the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law here. Have at it. Anyway, the path to wealth isn't flashy, it's practical. The uncool habits today are what make you truly unstoppable tomorrow. This week, embrace one uncool financial habit. Drive your old car with pride, bring lunch from home, or cancel that overpriced subscription. Or like I do, play heavily discounted video games from like 3 consoles ago that are dirt cheap. I do that all the time. I also read books that are really old at the library that are not trending. Your future self will thank you. Anyway, it's been great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.